Most Venerable Geshe Pandit Thakur Rinpoche is one of the greatest living philosophers, psychologists, and logicians today. In the tradition, there is a great legacy of Nalanda and Tibet to humanity. It is of immense merit for Tibet House, the cultural center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Delhi, to publish the second edition of the book containing two important essays, a selective introduction to emptiness and the soothing rays of moonlight, loving kindness and compassion, the foundations for genuine peace and happiness, authored by the Most Venerable Geshe Pandit Thakur Rinpoche. Geshe Rinpoche served as the residential teacher of Tibet House, Delhi, for a whole decade, from 1978 through to 1988. His legacy, transpiring into thousands of students worldwide today, following and being benefited from the Nalanda Master's Course and Nalanda Diploma Course, the undertakings of Tibet House, which were inaugurated and blessed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama on 9th December 2016 in Thiagraj Stadium, New Delhi. Later, seeing the acute need of his mentorship in Debung Losing Monastic University, His Holiness the Dalai Lama advised Geshe Rinpoche to move back to Debung Losing Monastery, his alma mater. Under his able and untiring mentorship of the monk scholars, Debung Losing Monastic University, as intended and envisioned by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, has produced an enormous number of very refined monk scholars and practitioners. Tashi Dili, all of you. It was 2020, the month of October, November, that I personally made a request to my most venerable teacher, somebody who is extremely kind to me, the way a child was nurtured, the way the parents nurture the children. This is exactly how I was so honored that I was being nurtured by the most venerable Geshe Pandit Thakur Rinpoche, and I made the request to him to give teachings on emptiness to the students of Nalanda Master's Course and Nalanda Diploma Course, the various batches, and he so kindly accepted. And then it was at the time of COVID, and suddenly there was the outbreak of the COVID in the various places in Dharamsala, and of course Delhi was the hub in those days, and then also in the monastery, so which really was a great the loss of the opportunity for us. And then finally this year 2020-21, in the month of the September, again I made further request that this teaching be given to all the Nalanda Master's students and the students of the Nalanda Diploma Course undertaking of Tibet House. And Geshe Rinpoche, he said that because of his ill health, he would like to give a quick, transmission of the teaching to me, and then that I can share this with all the students of Nalanda Master's Course and Nalanda Diploma Course. This is how it came into being. And finally, that in for 3 days, October 18, 19, and 20, for 3 days, this teaching was given and was attended to by many students of Venerable Geshe Rinpoche, and he was extremely kind with all his difficulties with the illness, and he gave a very succinct teaching on the wisdom of emptiness and great compassion. So this was what happened, and then the teaching on the wisdom of emptiness. It was the book. This book It has two parts. The first one is on emptiness, a selective introduction to emptiness, and the other one is on compassion, a soothing rays of moonlight, loving kindness and compassion, the foundations for genuine peace and happiness. So, and one additional page on emptiness pertaining to the inquiry into the object of designation, object of imputation, and this was the 3-day teaching. And seeing that the one at the advice of my teacher, Venerable Geshe Rinpoche, and seeing that this teaching would be extremely valuable, so precious, I just couldn't think of keeping it there. Rather, why not I take it to all the people? I know that there are so many people, like the students of Nalanda Master's course, Nalanda Diploma course, as well as the students who are studying emptiness, who meditate emptiness everywhere from the various traditions, like from the Theravada tradition, from the Chinese tradition, from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, like Sakya, Kakyu, Nyingma, Gelog, and yet would depend on English language. So for those people, I could see that this is going to be extremely a great gift and legacy for that matter. We decided to go for to do English translation of the video on video, and so this is how it came into being. And for information that in Tibetan, the first part may not be too audible because of some technical issues there, and in terms of the book, the page numbers that I read, these those page numbers are on the basis of the first edition of the book, and the later second and more editions are bound to come later on. For that matter, you can see that the text will be shown on the screen alongside, parallel to the teaching, parallel to Venerable Geshe Rinpoche, and the translator. So there you can see where it's come the section, particular section that we are reading or studying. So this is what I'd like to share with you, and let us set a proper motivation that this teaching, not just to be left as an intellectual inquiry, but a deep reflection of somebody who is highly renowned, respected, and the respected enlightened being, incredibly the great, like the North Star in in pursuit of the philosophy of ultimate reality, and the psychologist, incredibly great psychologist, and a logician, a living the person on this earth. And let us try to imbibe what we learn from there into your, say, the meditation. And then alongside, I also like to inform this to the audience, particularly to the English audience, that after the completion of Venerable Geshe Rinpoche's teaching and the translation, where the Venerable Geshe Rinpoche ended with the very powerful prayer. After the prayer, then I'm going to give a very quick summary of what Geshe Rinpoche taught pertaining to emptiness. Okay, so let us all set a proper motivation. With this in mind, finally, the purpose is, the motivation should be that all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, particularly Buddha Shakyamuni, are in Manjushri, are in Maitreya, are in Nagarjuna, Acharya Chandrakirti, Bodhisattva Shanti Deva, and today His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Rinpoche, Geshe Rinpoche, and all these enlightened beings be there with us, blessing us with the wisdom and with compassion, and that we be surrounded by your two parents and all your family members, living on the side, and all the other sentient beings living on the side, that you encourage all of them. Just imagine all of you take along with you all the dear sentient beings to get this teaching from such an enlightened being, and that each one of them receive the nectar of the wisdom to dispel the darkness of ignorance. So this will be our the motivation, and then as the teaching goes, Venerable Geshe Rinpoche will begin with the Refuting Bodhicitta verse. Okay, thank you. Let's all look forward to this teaching. Thank you so much. First, with first setting proper motivation, and whatever merits, whatever wisdom that we gathered from this, let us pray that this will be of benefit for yourself and for the beings, to get rid of the self-grasping ignorance, and on that basis to attain the state of awakening for oneself and for all others. With this mind, going for refuge 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations to the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations to the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations to the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings.
Ali Damdul Venerable Jibala, Tony Togo, Tony Seneca, Katsu Meba, Tonson Chile, Coaches and the Team Mares, Jome Chila, the Coaches, Mapper, Tion, Labor, Coy Labor Shigo, Tony Shigo, Dead Shibala. Tish ni Shiba Layo, Tomba ni Gacha Lola, Labor Shergo, Shergo, Koyima, Lola, Labor Shevala, Arali by Anile, Tani to Keshiva ni tombeau na ta Tony se da karar segura sena ane stashi navshi nyashi par dodi le conjustili qui a thématique tela qui ronge yoma conjustili qui a thématique c'est thématon maduda oh si so di to to karar sena stela rale bad ni to Coimba de Orola Chitokiro, what Tony said the Jella Rally, Chitoko, Rosso, Ronsu Tonkaga, or Timebala Codire, Siaga, Tastasico, Saboti, Tombo Tombo, and Tindo, Tony did so. Only Rola Chitoki, Rojit. Meba tombi de tonde no sombi de chance odi ji stashi ko chukurure ji soma ta no so tati do no je go toni ya de da ko tonda da tendi lo ko ji man.
The first composition, a selective introduction to emptiness. Rinpoche, Venerable Geshe Pandita Rinpoche said, I'm going to read through this in the form of oral transmission. Meanwhile, where necessary, explanations will be given. A selective introduction to emptiness. Homage to the discriminative wisdom, thoroughly probing the phenomena. Here, the discriminative wisdom refers to the wisdom which is the ability to identify emptiness, which is the ability to cognize emptiness in its most refined form. The text continues. In his way of the Bodhisattva, the Master Shantideva says, the sage has taught all those branches of teachings for the sake of promoting the wisdom. Every dharma that the Buddha taught was done for the sake of generating the wisdom, understanding emptiness, so that it could eradicate all the faults and the miseries of sentient beings. Therefore, we should not simplistically equate emptiness with nothingness. Rather, we must comprehend well what emptiness is. This comprehension, in turn, depends on understanding well what the object of negation of emptiness is. And as indicated here, that the self-grasping ignorance that needs to be eradicated, for which one has to realize emptiness. And the text continues, as per and for to understand emptiness, one needs to identify the object of negation. When we speak about emptiness, we have to negate something, to say this object is empty of something. To negate that, we identify what that object is to be negated. So that is known as identifying the object of negation. It reads, this comprehension of emptiness in turn depends on understanding well what the object of negation of emptiness is. Regarding that, emptiness is regarding what emptiness is, chapter 24 of Lama Tsongkhapa's exposition treatise on the middle way quotes a sutra and moves on to explicate its meaning in the following. So for this, the need for us to identify emptiness precisely is required. And here, Lama Tsongkhapa quoted the sutra, which said, that which is born from causes is not independently born, etc. This suggests that anything that is contingent upon conditions is devoid of the nature of being self-sustaining and is therefore empty in nature. When we speak about emptiness, particularly this section very clearly indicated that a self-sustaining entity, independent entity in the form of self-sustaining entity, this is something which is to be rejected or to be negated. What we see things as so self-sustaining, self-supporting, is deceptive, and that's to be negated, and negation of that, seeing the emptiness of that, is known as emptiness.
Mean the Tabat member Tanya Tabi Tasai Tos or Tanya Tabi Tasai Tos and Sashi Tuchi no Dili order. Only Tasai Tund or Kijat Tanya Tabi Tasai Tuti. Rongi Mood, Trabi, Stipcha, Chichi, Jin, Tayuan, Zambana, Gachan Zamba Teres, Tagajan Siate, or the Tajin Yayu. Jetons, Leshinimod, only, Ona Migi Tani Ongi Masha but Ray Ong no Chandra the Rongi Rongi Chiniji Traban to Kona to Korongi Rongi Chiniji Traban. Oh, yeah, Chiniji Traban. Rongi Chiniji Trabana, to Korong, Rongi Mo, Otagi, Ronchi Tabaria, to Chibaisa, Rongi Mo, Rongi, Korongi, Mo, Niki, Yuber, Song Keys, Rongi Chiniji, Rochi Dana Koro, Deram, Song Yajet Tanya Ongi Yober Mason Betis, no Mason Ver, this Shoto, she is the somebody. Some co, Satanation Yamonika no Tasai to see at the Chuti Yorra. They say Yamoto Kashikashi no Tapito see at the Tipaze, Matasito is a so such in do. What in it to
Page 28, in the middle, regarding the object of negation of emptiness, chapter 1 of Lama Tsongkhapa's exposition of treatise on the midway says, instead of seeing both the cause and effect respectively to be the generator and the generated by sheer virtue of being designated, so if one grasps at the objects of those designations to be the generator and the generated, generator is a producer and generated, produced, producer and produced respectively by way of the intrinsic nature, then that is grasping at the object of negation. Here there is a great emphasis on the objects of those designations to be producer and produced respectively by way of their own intrinsic nature. So that object, the basis of designation, or the objects to be designated, that is emphasized. And it continues, likewise, Lama Tsongkhapa's essence of the true eloquence, distinguishing the provisional and the definitive meaning, says, if you ask, what is that is being negated that amounts to being not established by convention? If the base upon which the designation of a person takes place exists by way of his own characteristics, then that base would have existed intrinsically, not by the force of subjective convention, and that is what is being negated. Here, in the middle, when it says, takes place exists by way of his own characteristic. So this by way of its own characteristics, it simply means the self-supporting self-characteristics. And in both the texts, the exposition of treatise on the middle way, as well as which is Molamada Mekarika, as well as the essence of the eloquent speech, essence of the true eloquence, in both, Lama Tsongkhapa is the emphatic with the basis on which the designation is done. And in some of the texts, you do find the mention of what is the objects that is designated. So we need to make a distinction between objects on which the designation made and the objects to be designated. In some texts, you do find the mention of the objects which are designated. So perhaps there is a typo there. This is a mistake. What we need to really know is that objects on which the designation is done. And that object, if you see that as truly existent, that perception or thought, that apprehension is the grasping at the object of negation of emptiness. Continuation, page 29. Regarding the notion of being generated by virtue of being designated or by virtue of being established by conceptual thought, here is sharing with us as to how things come into being, or how things are established, or how things are posited by the power of convention or by the power of the thoughts. So it reads, established by the conception of thought, exposition of the way of the Bodhisattva by Geshe, one of Tsongkhapa's two chief disciples, says, aren't the feelings of pain and pleasure established by virtue of being clung to and imputed by conceptual thought? They are because the same food or drink would be imputed to cause both pain and pleasure. And the things that we ascribe as the desirable or good or bad, or as delicious or not delicious, so these are all imputed. These are all imputed by the individual person's the thinking or conceptual thoughts.
Dangerous, or the dangerous. The Rongela, the certainly, the Rongela, no troubles, what is danger, Senatang, Atol, Churdivat, Milono, Jesuita, on the Rongi Muyo, but Denver trouble you want the dangerous. Oh, Rongi Ronshi, you want the dangerous, Rongela, you have no troubles. The new country trouble, the old. On that team, new trauma, the danger Yamato, the new trauma.
The text continues. Now one might wonder how to determine the object of negation. On this, Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path of enlightenment says, the grasping at the lifelike appearing reflection in the mirror as existing intrinsically is a grasping into existence, and the fact that we have such a grasping within our continuum is experientially established. Here, when we see the reflection, lifelike appearing reflection, the reflection of your face on a mirror, we see it as real, as objective real. And Lama Tsongkhapa says that how do we know that this is what is coming to how the mirror, the reflection of the mirror appears as truly real to a mind? So this Lama Tsongkhapa says that it's through experiential, through one's personal first-hand experience. Tin tabi rek mares, ti tin de osunye ga de toni jobi tat ka tondo tabi tin de gacha de makin ke tin ji gole te kena je suis ki tin de toni totsana je ma ne jomo go ba chang ti pindro le mendu se ti se ara ti tin de toni tondo undo te le tu me ton carensena te le tu yo mares Tatile carare se dogono chiome de tanti di nola contre no rongi di tombanze. Zugnie ton nola la zugnie
Ga Geshe Kasuni Chevisi, Ti Tinda Magdemba, Zimba, Anin Chevi, Zimba to Magdemba, Ni, Tola, no after Matuba, Ni, Ani the Kararas and Osini, Corona, and there's no after Matuba, Burbur Draboto, Dodon Draboto, Tasso Yoma, Titi, no, Condon, Rapata. Ti tenda roji ji trapalo chito su yu ba a melo no la jeje ga ni tin sha li a yin sha li yo la a thara ni yo la thara ni ke no ne ane ara pa tan thepe ne dro ne o te ra ona ni ke so lo ni ke yi te de tenda ni yo ni ke le tenda ni ma di ko la ane chamo ta ma to rong ge rong su thabi kar re se de ko la ane zini rongshi ki traba chaya, rongshi traba chaya ti mato mewa, kena, pena meche ka, ane, zu, mu denpa yi siya chiga, zu, mu denpi lika ni, chi chara, lika ni chi yo na, chik to meba tong ku kore kore, ko mu denpa yi ba tong kore. Rete, Zeni Gatin, Mandema Yamba, no gentle of Sima to Yomare. Sita Kuru Mandema Yamba Tenona, no at the Majabatona, and it's on the stones over there. Sitala Yor, Pena Tigur, Mandema, Zuni, Kum, Zuni Shayuna, Zurapat, Toticola, Mandema Yamba, don't do it. O Kondo no Ronji Tomba ta tila yin yo le ti de kena ko mde ba yin ba ko zamba yin ba ha ko cha ani ka ke go we ma cha mu to ma to na yin de ta ra pa no ate ani jite ma ronga ha ko ja burbur rabo to rijin rabo to no ate o de ne mde ba ha ko ne ti pil jane tene ne ke yi 아니 제가 kenzo 거라 담은데 말 노아나시도 민도와 노아나 추토 총케도 데 덴버 총케도 데 노아 티노시 만도 시케나티 테핀존이 던데데 아야 던데죠 따티 데서 시에나마도 뇨단도.
Okay, the text continues in the middle of page 30. However, the reason the reflection in the mirror is feasible to be a supporting example for conveying the lack of inherent existence is because the reflection, is devoid of nature it appears to have. The fact of its being devoid of the nature it appears to have is also established experientially. There's a reason why it has been upheld as an example in this. Okay. For this, whenever we try to establish emptiness, we use a syllogism. When you use that, we need a proper example, and before the person establishes the emptiness of true existence on the main topic, the sprout or whatever, before that, one should recognize the same thing on the example. This is how the example is used in order to help us to understand the rejection of true existence on the main topic. And for this, then the question is, or the argument is that if you've already rejected true existence on the example, then for emptiness, where you are able to reject true existence on any object, and on that basis you understand emptiness, then on other objects, on all other objects, you don't need any extra reasoning to prove that. So then the same reasoning that you have already understood, and on the basis of which you have realized you have rejected true existence on that particular object, you apply this to any other object, and you can instantly cognize the absence of that object negation on that particular object. So if that's the case, then how does it work as an example the reflection of the mirror as an example for establishing emptiness. So without understanding the rejection of the rejection of what is to be negated on the example, then you cannot use that as an example. And if you are to say yes, it's all rejected on the example, then as how it works with the emptiness reasoning, that where one has rejected the true existence on one object without having the need of any other reasonings to reject true existence on other objects, you can still understand the emptiness of true existence on other objects. So there's a dilemma there. Do you have the example or not? If you don't have the example, then this reasoning to establish emptiness doesn't work. If you do have the example, then you've already rejected true existence on the example, and then this doesn't become a valid reasoning, valid syllogism or reasoning, for the reason that as per the understanding of emptiness, of one object. Once that happens, then for other things you don't need extra reasonings to establish emptiness. So this, what you've understood, the reasons that you've understood on one object, you apply this to other things. So this is the debate or the dilemma. For that, what is said here is that because the reflection is devoid of the nature it appears to have. The fact of its being devoid of the nature it appears to have. So this word, the devoid of the nature it appears to have. In Tibetan, it is Kando Nawa Rashing Tongba. Being devoid of the nature it appears to have. This is the key. For this, on the basis of the reflection in the mirror, we can see two levels of deception, or two levels of two levels of absence of true existence. So one is that what you see on the mirror, the reflection that you see in the mirror, in actuality, what is the truth versus what is deception? And there are two levels of deception. On that basis, there are two levels of truth also. The one deception is that this reflection, while it is just 2D, it does not have any of these, as a real 3D physical form, as the protrusion and so forth, but it appears to have the protrusion, some of the parts of the face, like the nose coming out and so forth. This is what you see with the reflection in the mirror. And in actuality, with the reflection per se, if you really go there to see, it does not really have something which is protruding out of the mirror. Yet it appears like this. This one deception. And is a very gross level of deception, how it appears to our mind. Then number two is that the same reflection is seen as objectively real or truly real, to be intrinsically real there, not coming by the power of your mental imputation. So there are two levels of deception happening, and on that basis, we see that when you reject one of these two deceptions, then we see that okay, this mirror, this reflection is deceptive. Simply by understanding one of the two deceptions is good enough to say that okay, I know that this reflection is deceptive. So when you reach to that level, although of the two deceptions, you are yet to disprove the subtler level of deception, which is how the reflection appears as the intrinsically real, not by the power of the mind, And so of the two, although you are yet to reject the subtler one, simply by rejecting the grosser one and unfolding or understanding that the reflection in the mirror does not exist as the real, as something with protrusion and so forth, we say that I understand that this reflection is deceptive. So the on that, so with this, say the another example is a person. Let's say a person, say is a person tells lies. The person is a liar. A person tells two lies, a very gross one and the subtle one. And of the two, if you're able to identify one lie, the gross one, as a lie, then you say that, oh, this person is deceptive, this person is a liar, although you are yet to identify the subtler one. So it is good enough that in order to identify the person as a liar or person as deceptive, it's good enough that you identify any of these two, gross or the subtle, and in this case the gross one. It's good enough that you have identified the person as a liar, and which means what the person says is not true. So likewise, with the reflection in the mirror, what you identified, of the two levels of deception, the moment you identify the grosser level of the deception, that's good enough that that in the conventional world we say that, okay, this way I have identified that the reflection in the mirror is deceptive. Okay, so the deception, the word here, it says that the fact of its being devoid of its nature, it appears to have. Devoid, being empty of the nature it appears to have. So this word has to be understood, is to be understood to mean the object not to be existing the way it appears. But keep in mind that this word, the fact of its being empty or devoid of the nature it appears to have. So with this, when I apply this to the reflection in the mirror, to see the reflection in the mirror as not the one, as empty of being, having protrusion of the nose, eyes, and so forth, that is understanding of the person have understood the emptiness of the nature it appears to have. Emptiness, the fact of being, the reflection being devoid of, or the empty of, the nature it appears to have. Whereas for on the part of other things like the sprout and so forth, there it doesn't have these two levels of deception. The gross one is not there, so it has only the subtle one, which is that the sprout sprout appears as truly real, as objectively real. So this is the subtle one. So the same understanding of this label, the fact of its being devoid of the nature it appears to have. When you cognize this with respect to the reflection mirror, the moment you cognize the gross level of deception there, you already cognize the fact of being the reflection, being devoid of the nature it appears to have. And whereas for the sprout, in order for one to cognize the sprout being devoid, being empty of the nature it appears to have, you have to cognize the subtle one, because it doesn't have two levels, gross and the subtle. So only by understanding the subtle one you are entitled to know this, otherwise you don't know this. Now when you use the reasoning, for example, say this sprout is empty of true existence because it is dependent originated. For example, a reflection of a mirror. When you give this example, the reflection of a mirror, so there, in both cases, so the example, what is to be negated of the predicate, the opposite of the predicate, that is the sprout as the topic, it is empty of true existence. So true existence to be negated, to say empty of true existence. So this true existence, what is this true existence? This true existence, how you label this is to be labeled as the empty of, or the true existence to be labeled as the nature it appears to have. The nature it appears to have. And empty of true existence means devoid, the fact of being empty of the nature it appears to have. Okay, this is how you put there. It is empty, as proud as the topic, it is empty of true existence. So it is not really replacing, but this how we have to understand it to mean the proud as the topic. It is being empty of the nature it appears to have, because it is dependent originated, for example, like the reflection in a mirror. So then this predicate, empty of being the nature it appears to have, or what is it, the translated here, devoid of being, devoid of the nature it appears to have. When you cognize this on the example, which is the reflection in the mirror, simply by cognizing the gross one, you already cognize it. But whereas when you the same predicate, when you have to cognize this on the topic, which is proud, since the proud does not have the two levels of deception, you have to cognize the subtle one. So how the example works as appropriately here in the syllogism is that on the example, this predicate is already cognized, but this predicate is not cognized on the topic. So therefore, it serves as a proper example, and that to cognize this predicate, to realize this predicate on the example, which is the reflection of the mirror, it is not necessary that one should cognize emptiness. So this is how the example is set.